Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Krishna Bhagavan ki jai Shri Prabhupada ki jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai Hare Krishna Hare Krishna everyone. Welcome
Hare
to
Krishna.
our weekly study of Bhagavad Gita. So last week we finished our 7th chapter, which is Jnana Vijnana Yoga, or the knowledge of the absolute truth, in which we learn about the science of Krishna. He says in the beginning that this is the science that once you know this knowledge, nothing else shall remain for you to know. And then he explained about his how he is all pervading, Rasom Hapsu Konte Prabhas Mishish Surya Yoga, that he is in everything, and everything, the essence of everything, even in this material world, is basically coming from Krishna. And then as we progressed, eventually we learned that the last couple of verses, we can go back there, and then those are the one which connect to this chapter. The last two verses what we read in last week, that Jara Marana Mokshaya Mama Shritta Yatantite Te Brahma Tad Vidu Krishnam Adhyatmam Karma Chakhilam. So just pay attention to some of the words that he mentioned here. So he said here, Jara Marana Mokshaya. So to get free from Jara, Vruddhatva and Maran, the old age and death, one who wants to get free from this, and they take Mam Ashritya Yatantite. They make effort to take shelter of Krishna. They Maza Ashray Getat. Te Brahma, they are Brahma. So this is one word. Tad Vidu, know them that they are Brahma. Krishnam Adhyatmam Karma Cha Akhilam, because they know the Adhyatma Karma or spiritual activity. So here the three words that we are going to study today, Brahma, then Adhyatma and Karma. So these three words. So remember these three words. And in the next verse, in the last verse of the previous chapter, he said, Sadhi bhutadi daivam mam, sadhi yagnyam chaye vidu, prayana kale pichamam, te vidur yukta chetasa. So here again, there are four things from this. Sa adhibhuta, adhidaiva, then adhiyagnya, sa adhidaiva, and prayana kale pichemam te vidur chetasa. So there are three technical words here: adhibhuta, adhidaiva, and adhiyagnya. And then that they will know me the way I am at the time of giving up this body, prayana kale. So let's come to today's chapter now, 8th chapter. So here in the first two verses, Arjun asks those questions. What are these? So you just mentioned that there is something called Brahma, then Adhyatma, Karma, Adhibhuta, Adhidaiva, Adhiyagnya, and thinking about you at the time of death or at the time of quitting this body. So this is what Arjuna asked in the first two shlokas of this chapter. And then this whole chapter, Krishna elaborates on that and explains that in answer to that question. And very beautiful questions, actually. Very nice question Arjuna asked here. So let's go to the first verse and we'll recite this verse. So this 8th chapter is known as Akshara Brahma Yoga. So please recite. Arjuna Uvacha.
Arjuna Uvacha.
Kim tad Brahma kim adhyatmam.
Kim tad Brahma kim adhyatmam.
Kim karma purushottama.
Kim karma purushottama.
Adhibhutam cha kim proktam.
Adhibhutam cha kim proktam.
Adhidaivam kim uchyate.
Adhidaivam kim uchyate.
Kim tad Brahma kim adhyatmam.
Kim tad Brahma kim adhyatmam.
Kim karma purushottama.
Kim karma purushottama.
Adhibhutam cha kim proktam.
Adhibhutam cha kim proktam.
Adhidaivam kim uchyate.
Adhidaivam kim uchyate.
We can take a couple of recitations about Gandhali Mataji. You want to recite?
एक मिनिट. किं अर्जुन उवाच.
Arjuna Uvacha.
अर्जुन उवाच.
Arjuna Uvacha.
किं तद् ब्रह्म किम् अध्यात्मम्.
Kim tad Brahma kim adhyatmam.
किं कर्म पुरुषोत्तम.
Kim karma purushottama.
अधिभूतं च किं प्रोक्तम्.
Adhibhutam cha kim proktam.
अधिदैवं किमुच्यते.
Adhidaivam kim uchyate. Thank you, Mataji. Kiran Prabhu, do you want to lead?
Arjuna Uvacha. Kim tad Brahma kim adhyatmam.
Kim tad Brahma kim adhyatmam.
Kim karma purushottamam.
Kim karma purushottama.
Adhibhutam cha kim proktam.
Adhibhutam cha kim proktam.
Adhidaivam kim uchyate.
Adhidaivam kim uchyate. Thank you, Kiran Prabhu. I'll do word for word meaning or the synonyms. Arjuna Uvacha means Arjuna said. Kim means what. Tat means that. Brahma means Brahman. Kim means what. Adhyatma means the self. Kim means what. Karma means fruitive activities. Purusha Uttama, O Supreme Person. Adhibhutam means the material manifestation. Cha means and. Kim means what? Proktam means is called. Adidaivam means the demigods. Kim means what? Uchyate means is called. So he's asking few questions here. Arjuna is asking. So Arjuna inquired, O my Lord, O Supreme Person, what is Brahman? What is the self? What are fruitive activities? What is the material manifestation? And what are demigods? Please explain this to me. So these words we read, Jara Marana Mokshaya Mama Shikte Yatantite. Te Brahma. So Krishna mentioned one word, that Brahma. So Arjuna is asking, what is that Brahma? Adhyatma. That is also word he uses there. Adhyatma karma. So he combines those words, Adhyatma karma, the original spiritual activity. So he's asking, what is Adhyatma and what is karma? So he's asking, Kim Adhyatmam, Kim karma, and what is karma? And in the following verse, in the last verse of the 7th chapter, Krishna said that Sadhibhutadi Daivamam Sadhyagnyam Chayo Vidu. Sa Adhibhutam. That Adhibhutam and Adhidaivam. And then he also asked about mentions about Adhiyagnya. So that Arjuna asked in the next verse. So we'll go to that verse when after finishing this. So these are the questions Arjuna is asking. So what are these? You just mentioned that these terms, but these terms, what do they really mean? So, and he's asking this to whom? He's referring Krishna as Purusho Uttama, or best of the Purushas, or the Supreme Purusha. Because Krishna is supreme. He's a person, first of all. He is not Nirakar, or is not imperson, Avyakta. He is a person, and he is the supreme person, the supreme personality of Godhead. That's how Prabhupada translates the word Bhagavan. He is the supreme personality of Godhead. And why he's mentioning him as Purushottama? Because such type of questions we cannot ask anybody but to the authority, somebody who knows about this, somebody who can really tell about this. And that's where Arjuna is asking this question. So he's asking, O Supreme Person, what is Brahman? What is the self? What are fruitive activities or karma? What is the material manifestation or Adhibhuta? And what are the demigods, the Adhidaiva? Please explain this to me. So we can read the purport and we can discuss this a little bit and move on to the next purport. So Rajesh Anantaraman Prabhu, you want to read the purport, please?
In this chapter, Lord Krishna answers different questions from Arjuna, beginning with what is Brahman. The Lord also explains karma, fruitive activities, devotional service and yoga principles, and devotional service in its pure form. The Srimad Bhagavatam explains that the supreme absolute truth is known as Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. In addition, the living entity, the individual soul, is also called Brahman. It's got scrolled. In addition, the living entity, the individual soul, is also called Brahman. Arjuna also inquires about Atma, which refers to body, soul, and mind. According to the Vedic dictionary, Atma refers to the mind, soul, body, and senses also. Arjuna has addressed the Supreme Lord as Purushottama, Supreme Person, which means that he was putting these questions not simply to a friend, but to a Supreme Person, knowing him to be the supreme authority, able to give definitive answers.
Thank you, Rajesh Babu. So we can briefly touch. So these are questions Krishna is going to answer in this chapter from 3rd verse onwards, but we'll just touch upon this a little bit. So what is Brahman? So Brahman is something that is the spiritual entity. That's what we will learn from the 3rd verse. So, and Brahman, so Brahman also means something that is superior or something that is supreme. And we learned from the 7th chapter, Krishna explained in the 4th and 5th verse of the 7th chapter that everything in this creation is made up of two energies, that is material energy and spiritual energy. And the material energy constitutes of 8 parts, the 8 sections or 8 elements, the 5 gross and 3 subtle. So 5 gross elements are the Panchamahabhuta, earth, water, fire, air, ether, and the 3 subtle or Sukshma elements are mind, intelligence, and false ego. And beyond this, he explains that there is a superior energy of mind. Apareyam itastvanya prakrutim viddhime param. And what is that? Jiva bhutam mahabaho yaedam dharyate jagat. So the Jiva bhutam, or the living entities, or the spiritual souls, spiritual energy, is superior energy. So that is Brahman. Brahman means something that is superior. And that's why the supreme person in this universe is also called as Brahma, because he is the supreme person. He is the first living entity in this or every universe. So in every universe, however many universes are there, in each universe, the first living entity created is Brahma. So because he is the supreme, and then all the other living entities are created. So that is Brahman in a nutshell. Brahman means spiritual energy, or Brahman means Brahman effulgence also, Lords, is called Brahman or Brahma Jyoti. So that is the superior energy of Lord. Then what is the self? So Adhyatma. Adhyatma means self. So Adhyatma means the original nature of the spiritual entity. The real constitutional nature or position of the living entity, because when we are in this material world, we are not following our constitutional position, but because we are under control of the 3 modes of material nature, or the 3 guna, satogun, rajogun, and tamogun, we are kind of contaminated. Our consciousness has been contaminated by the material energy, and we are not doing our original nature, but we are following something that is against our original nature, and that's why we are suffering in this world, because this world is made for that. Dukkhalayam ashashvatam. We'll read in this same chapter, in the 14th verse. Krishna mentions about this verse. Then what are fruitive activities? What is karma? So karma, Krishna explains eventually that karma is any activity that we perform is basically karma. And we saw in the past, in the 4th chapter, when we were studying, there are different types of karma. So based on different contexts, there are different, the karma is categorized differently. But in general, karma is differentiated in 3 ways: karma, vikarma, and akarma. So karma means when I am engaged in fruitive activities. Why Prabhupada translates this karma as fruitive activities? Because I am working something to get some result out of it, some fruits out of my action. And that's why karma, whatever karma I am doing, is for getting some result. But when I get that result, I have to either enjoy or suffer the result of every activity. That is karma. Vikarma or viparitani karmani. Vikarma is the karma that is done against the rules. So something that the scriptures say that I should not do or I should not indulge in. If I am doing that, that is vikarma. So vikarma basically is a criminal activity. So when a citizen is living life nicely according to following rules and regulations, and then he reaps the benefits of the government that has been provided to him. So he is doing karma, but he is engaged in some criminal activity that the rules say that we should not do this, and he does that. Then he is eligible for punishment for that. So that punishable activity is called vikarma. That is in Vedic literature clearly mentioned that you should not do this, then that is vikarma. And akarma is the karma, same karma that I am doing, but not for getting any result for myself or my sense gratification, but offering those results to Krishna or Bhagavan, because he is the one who has given me even ability to do everything. So every result I get, basically I have to offer it to him. Just like when I'm working in a company, the company gives me laptop, they give me facility to something, they also train me to perform that activity, and whatever benefits I earn from that, I offer it to karma. Like a sales representative, if he earns a business, the business profit is made by company, not by him, and whatever company gives him in return for as a remuneration or as a salary, then he is satisfied with that. Or same thing about a banking teller, whatever money he's transacting during the bank whole day, that money does not belong to him, that money comes to him and he just keeps an account of that, but he doesn't keep the money, but that money belongs to bank or their customers. Money, even though he's handling that money, that doesn't belong to him, and for that transaction he is given something in return, and he's happy with that. In the same manner, a person, when he understands that the ability to do everything what I am doing is given to me by God or Krishna, even the intelligence that has been given to me by God, so whatever I am able to do is actually, the results are actually belong to Krishna. So I offer it to him, and whatever is prasadam I get by his mercy, I am satisfied with that. So this is a karma. By doing a karma, I am not bound by that karma. I don't have to enjoy or suffer the results of that karma, and I am free from all the karmic reactions. That same thing that Krishna tells in the third chapter, 9th verse, that how to do karma. In the beginning, that chapter name itself is Karma Yoga, where he says that one cannot stop doing karma at any moment, because we do karma by three things: kaya, vacha, manasa. By our body, by physical activity, whatever I am doing, that is karma. When I am speaking something, that is also karma. And when I am thinking something, that is also karma. So I cannot stop at any moment doing karma. I'm as long as I am in this material world, I am bound to do some kind of karma. Because even to maintain this body, I have to do some karma, otherwise I won't be able to even maintain this body. But he says then, yajnarthe karmano anyatra lokoyam karma bandhanai. That yajna by Vishnu. Yajna is anything, yajna means Vishnu, or yajna is any activity performed for Vishnu. So yajnarthe karma has to be done for the satisfaction of yajna or sacrifice or Vishnu. Anyatra lokoyam karma bandhanai. In this loka, in this material world, any other activity I do that creates karma bandhan for me. And then he says that tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. When you perform work for yajna or for Vishnu, then mukta sangha samachara. You are free from any kind of bondage that is created by karma. So that is karma. So we'll learn, and that karma creates another body. So we'll learn more about karma again in this chapter. And what is material manifestation? So everything what we see around us, that is made up of all the basically 24 elements, but these 8 gross elements, then 5 senses, 5 sense organs, sense objects, and everything. All these constitute 24 elements. We'll learn about that in detail in 13th chapter. So this is all the material creation, this material manifestation, and which is not permanent, which is temporary, which is annihilated and created again and again, which comes into existence and then it is annihilated at a certain point of time. Just like our body is created at a certain point, and when this body is not suitable for the living entity to be in residing within, then he has to give up this body. Or when his term ends for this particular lifetime, then he has to leave this body. He has no choice. He cannot decide if he can continue. So this, just like this body is created and annihilated, we get another body, and again that is created and annihilated. In the same manner, this material creation or the material manifestation is happening all the time. Creation, sustenance, and annihilation. And then what are the demigods? So the demigods are basically, when there is a creation, to maintain this creation, the different regulations and rules, and for the sustenance of the whole creation, there are different activities that need to be performed, different things that need to be controlled. The controlling deities for this are called demigods or the devatas, or they, in general, they are called Adidaiva. So that's what he's asking. So Adidaiva is nothing but Krishna's agents who are maintaining, or who are the administratives of these different energies of God. Just like sun god is, his duty is to give us whole universe, heat and light, the energy. He is the sole supplier of energy for this universe. Indra is the one who is the controller of rain. So because of him, we get rain every time. Or moon is the controller of vegetation. Because of moon, there is vegetation which grows nicely. And some same way, Vayu is the controller of wind. And so all this, Varuna for water, water bodies in this universe. So these are the different demigods. So all this, they are combinedly called as Adidaiva. And this is what Arjuna is asking. And this, he's asking to Krishna, and when he's referring to him as Purushottama. So whenever we are asking some question, this is very beautiful question actually, and this is because this is not something that is selfish for his own motive, but this is for Lokahitam. And the similar things when Parikshit Maharaj asked, that Shukdev Goswami praises him, that Varyane Shute Prashnam Nrupam Lokahitam. So you are asking this Varyana question. Varya means Sreshta. When among the Muni, somebody is Sreshta, I call him Muni Varya. So somebody who is great. So the question what you have asked, he is praises him, that this is very nice, beautiful question you have asked, because this question is for Lokahitam. This is for the hita or benefit of all the general people. It's not like something that is selfish or something that is asking your some selfish motive. And that's the similar questions when we hear from Arjuna. They are very beautiful questions. And because of Arjuna, we are getting this knowledge from Bhagavad Gita as well. Because Arjuna asked these smart questions to Krishna, we are getting this knowledge through Arjuna, directly from Krishna. And Arjuna is asking, referring to him as Purushottama, because Krishna is the only one who can answer this question. When I have some question, something that is, let's say, about medical science, something about heart disease, the best person I can ask him, who is the cardiologist, who knows about the science and who understands this. I cannot ask them to any Tom, Dick, Harry who is on the street and ask him about cardiology. In the same manner, these questions I should be asking to the Supreme Lord or his representative who is coming from Guru Shishya Parampara. Unfortunately, in today's world, anybody in a street gets to this college and he starts talking about Bhagavad Gita, or he starts talking about, who is Krishna and what does he know anything about it? I am better than him, and all talking about spirituality. But we should, Bhagavan Krishna has given us intelligence, the discriminating power, so we can understand who is the really knowledgeable person who is giving this knowledge really from Shastra, and whom we should be asking this question. Not anybody who is not even qualified to talk about this. But unfortunately, there are so many people in today's world, they talk about this who doesn't know anything about this, and they get praised by some spiritual gurus or acharyas. So that's where that thing we learn from here, Arjuna, is that we should be asking this question to a very authoritative person who is the authority in this science. And the supreme authority on this science of God or the spiritual science is Bhagavan Krishna himself. So that's in a nutshell for this particular verse. And the similar thing we will learn about the second verse as well. So any thoughts before we move on to the next verse?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Rajesh Babu.
Hare Krishna. In that purport, you go down where it is said Atma refers to mind, soul, body, and senses all.
Yeah.
Is it like that, or Atma is different and mind is different? Sorry, body is different. Senses
Yes.
are different.
So the real meaning or the primary meaning of Atma is Jivatma or the spiritual soul. But in the context, Atma is referred in Vedic literature, Atma is referred to sometimes body, sometimes also soul, or sometimes also mind, because it is referring to that living entity. So just like, let's say, take an example of, what do you call it? Let's say orange, santra. So when I see an orange, I call, and if somebody asks me, what is this? I will just say that this is orange. If I peel that orange, put the skin on one side and the orange on one side, what do I call the orange that was inside? That is real orange. And the skin outside that I have taken out, will I call that orange? No, it's just a skin. But when the skin was on the orange, when I am referring to the whole thing as orange, that included skin as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or am I confusing? So when the soul is in this body, when I refer to this body, as long as the soul is there, I can refer to this body also as Atma, or I can refer to this mind also as Atma. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Rajesh Parve, Prabhu.
Because Atma, I mean, what I say, Atma continues even if the body is gone, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking Atma is only the soul.
Yeah, correct. That is the real meaning of Atma.
That is the real meaning.
Yes.
And body and five senses are together. Mind and your thoughts are together, actually. I mean, and Atma is different. Rather, Atma is looking towards all those things as an independent entity.
Yes. No, but in certain contexts, Atma is also mentioned something about body as long as the soul is within, or Atma is also referred to mind. So when I talk about let's take a word for just understanding Sanskrit. So when I say Atma Samman, the word Atma Samman means respect, self-respect. The word self-respect itself has no meaning if it is contextual to only soul. Because for soul, there is no respect required or anything, as long as, because I need respect only in the material contaminated position. Because I am thinking myself as this body, and because I am thinking myself as this body, somebody says something about this body or something related to this body, I get hurt, or if somebody praises, I feel better. But he's referring to this body, but I am still referring to that as Atma Samman. The word Atma there, Atma, is referring to body, because Samman or honor or dishonor is related to body. Does it make sense now?
Yeah.
So in that word, Atma Samman, the word Atma is referring to body.
Yes.
Okay.
So in that way, contextually, the word Atma can be referred to body, soul, or mind. But in the real sense, Atma means soul, the spiritual being. I hope that makes sense.
As far as the Atma is in the body is also.
Correct. Or same thing about candy. एखादं चॉकलेटची कॅन्डी जर घेतली, I refer to whole candy with wrapper as candy.
Oh.
But the wrapper is also mentioned as candy as long as it is on the candy. But when I remove the candy from the wrapper, then I don't refer the wrapper as candy. I refer only the candy within the wrapper as candy. But as long as the wrapper was on the candy, I can refer the whole, because wrapper is also there. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Correct.
Rajesh,
One question, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
When we say body, soul, and mind, the mind is essential part. See, you cannot separate the mind. You can separate the body. You cannot separate the soul and the mind. Because where the soul is, goes the mind. In fact, it is said that rebirth is often, your next birth often is based on memories from all the previous births, which basically means that the mind goes along.
Correct.
Do I take it that way? Because among the 7 chakras, there is one chakra which is solely evoking the memories.
Yep.
The anahata, I think that is the anahata, right?
Mhm.
The one between the brows.
Anahata chakra.
I don't remember exactly when. So, the soul, when you refer, it is assumed that the mind goes with it,
Correct.
cannot be separated. Because your soul will never take rebirth without the previous mind.
Correct. So you yourself answered this question in this sentence.
Okay.
The soul will never take rebirth without the mind. So as long as we means the soul, is in this material world, he has this material mind, intelligence, and false ego. So the body is made up of 2 different sections or 2 types of elements. One is gross elements or the sthula sharira, and the other one is subtle elements or subtle body or sukshma sharira. So the gross body, so when here it is referring to body, that is mostly gross body. Gross body is made up of earth, water, fire, air, ether. So the body which we experience through our senses. And then the subtle body or the sukshma sharir is made up of 3 elements, that is mind, intelligence, and false ego. So the mind, intelligence, and false ego is what carries us from one gross body to another gross body. So as you rightly said, Rajesh Anantaraman Prabhu, that this is the mind, intelligence, and false ego and chitta, that is consciousness, that takes us to another body. In the 15th chapter, Krishna says that Shariram yadvapnoti yachapyutkramatishvara gruhet vaitani sanyati vayur gandhani vashat. That when the soul or the spiritual entity, Jivatma, gives up one body and it takes up another body, so the mind, body, and intelligence carry it to another body, just like the air carries aroma from one place to another place. Just like if there is a flower pot there and there are some fragrant flowers there, the aroma carried by air comes to me and I can experience the aroma of those flowers. In the same manner, the way aroma carried by air, Vayur Gandha Nivashayat, Vayu carries Gandha, which I cannot see, I cannot experience, but I see, oh, that smell is coming. I'm experiencing that aroma or fragrance. In the same manner, the subtle body carries soul from one gross body to another gross body. And then it says that Shotram cha Shu Sparshanam cha Rasanam Granam evacha Adhisthaya Manaschaya Vishayan Upasevate. And then in the next body, it gets another set of Shotra, Chakshu, Sparshanam, Rasanam, Granam, all these 5 senses. He gets different type of ears, sense of ear, sense of seeing, sense of touching, sense of smelling, sense of tasting, all these senses he gets. And then around the mind, Kshotram Chakshusparshanam cha Rasanam Grahanam eva cha, and then they are around the mind. And then why he is getting that? Vishayan upasevate, because it wants to enjoy the Vishaya, the sense objects. It based on that, so the mind is around this mind, these senses are there, so the mind carries this. So as you said, as long as we are in this material world and as long as we are getting rebirth, we will have the same mind. But when we give up the subtle body also, the material body, and we obtain the spiritual mind, intelligence and false ego, that time this mind doesn't go with us. And when we give up that mind, that is the actual liberty or mukti. Mukti hitva anyatha rupam swarupena avasthiti. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the second canto, 10th chapter, I think 6th verse or so, then when Shukdev Goswami is explaining this, so he mentions about what is mukti. So mukti is when we give up that subtle body also. Because as long as I have that subtle body, mind, intelligence, material mind, intelligence and false ego, I am getting rebirth. And that's what you mentioned, that is why I am getting rebirth. Does that make Rajesh Prabhu sense? Rajesh Raman Prabhu?
Yes.
Let's try to
Yes,
see that
yes.
verse. Let me see if I can find that. I think in the
Yeah.
10th canto, Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. And then here, yeah, Mukti Ritva Anyatha Rupam Swarupena Avasthiti. Yeah, the second line he says. So when I get my original Swarupa, when I know that I am a spiritual being and I give up not only the gross body I have been giving up all the time, but when I give up my subtle body also and get my original spiritual body, that is real mukti. So here the second sentence is there. He says that liberation is the permanent situation of the form of living entity after he gives up the changeable gross and the subtle material bodies. That is mukti. So that's when we give up the material mind. But until we are in this material world, the material mind goes with us. And it carries the impressions of our previous samskaras, previous karma, all the karmic reactions. And based on that, it prepares another material body for us. Does that make sense now?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. So I hope that clarifies the. But yeah, that's very important and good question. Sometimes it is difficult for us to comprehend how things happen, but Shastra is there to help us. We just have to study them and learn from Sadhu Shastra Guru. So let's move on to the next verse and continue hearing Arjuna's question. So let's recite this verse. Adi yajna katham kotra. You can recite after me. Yeah. Adi yajna katham kotra. Dehesmin madhusudana. Prayana kale picha katham. Neyosi niyatatmabhi. Adi yajna katham kotra
आदियज्ञकथं पुत्र
dehesmin madhusudana.
देहेऽस्मिन्
मधुसूदना
प्रयाण काले च कथम
प्रयाणकाले
कथं
ज्ञेयोऽसि नियतात्मभिः.
नियतात्मभिः
Thank you, Prabhu. Let's get recitation. Who has not done? Rajesh Parve Prabhu, do you want to recite?
yeah.
काहीतरी व्हॉइस मध्ये प्रॉब्लेम
यज्ञ कथं कोत्र
Adhiyajnakatham kotra
आदि देहेऽस्मिन् मधुसूदन
dehesmin
मधुसूदना
madhusudana.
प्रयाणकाले च कथं
प्रयाणकाले च कथम
कथं
ज्ञेयोऽसि नियतात्मभिः
ज्ञेयोऽसि
ज्ञेयोऽसि
नियतात्मभिः.
नियतात्मभिः
Who else? Bapu Prabhu, are you available to recite? Or is in listening mode? Sorry. Okay. Gandhali Mata, you want to recite?
हो अधियज्ञ कथं कोत्र
कथं
पुत्र
देहेऽस्मिन् मधुसूदन
देहेऽस्मिन् मधुसूदना.
यस्मिन् मधु
प्रयाणकाले च कथं
प्रयाणकाले च कथं
ज्ञेयोऽसि नियतात्मभिः
ज्ञेयोऽसि
ज्ञेयोऽसि
नियतात्मभिः.
नियतात्मभिः
Thank you, Mataji. So let's read word for word meaning. So he is asking about Adhiyagnya, that means the Lord of sacrifice. Katham means how. Ka means who. Atra means here. Dehe means in the body. Asmin means this. Madhusudana, so he is referring to Krishna here as O Madhusudan. Prayana Kale means at the time of death or at the time of giving up this present body. Cha means and. Katham means how. Gneyah asi means you can be known. Niyata atmabhihi means by the self-controlled. Translation: who is the Lord of sacrifice and how does he live in the body, O Madhusudan? And how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? So he continues, Arjuna continues his question. So last verse he asked about 5 questions. Here he is asking 3 more. So he's asking about who is Adhiyagnya or who is the Lord of sacrifice. And Dehesmin, how in this body, Dehasmin, Katham Kotra, how does he live in this body? And he is referring to Arjuna here as Madhusudan. And again, in the purport, we'll see why he refers to him as Madhusudan. And then, how can those engaged in devotional service, the Niyata Atmabhi or the self-realized or self-controlled beings, know you at the time of death? Prayana Kale. So, how a self-realized person can know you at the time of death? So where in the previous chapter, in the last verse of the 7th chapter, he said that at the time of death, prayana kale, that the people, the person who is self-realized, they can also remember me as the controller of everything. Sadi daivam sadi yajnam chay, sadi bhutam, sadi daivam mam, sadi yajnam chayo vidu, prayane kale pichamam. Te vidur yukta chetasa. Yukta chetasa is the word he uses in the previous chapter. And here he is using Niyata Atmabhi. So the self-control or self-realized person, how can they remember you? How can they know you? So this is what Arjun is asking. So let's read the purport. So do we have Sunil Prabhu? Or is he? Sunil Prabhu, you
Oh,
want
I.
to read the purport? Yeah, okay.
Lord of sacrifice may refer to either Indra or Vishnu. Vishnu is the chief of the primal demigods, including Brahma and Shiva, and Indra is the chief of the administrative demigods. Both Indra and Vishnu are worshipped by yajna performances. But here Arjun asks who is actually the Lord of yajna, sacrifice, and how the Lord is residing within the body of the living entity. Arjun addresses the Lord as Madhusudan because Krishna once killed a demon named Madhu. Actually, these questions, which are of the nature of doubts, should not have arisen in the mind of Arjun because Arjun is a Krishna conscious devotee. Therefore, these doubts are like demons. Since Krishna is so expert in killing demons, Arjun here addresses him as Madhusudan so that Krishna might kill the demonic doubts that arise in Arjun's mind. Now the word Prayanakale in this verse is very significant because whatever we do in life will be tested at the time of death. Arjun is very anxious to know of those who are constantly engaged in Krishna consciousness. What should be their position at that final moment? At the time of death, all the bodily functions are disrupted and the mind is not in a proper condition. Thus, disturbed by the bodily situation, one may not be able to remember the Supreme Lord. Maharaj Kulashekar, a great devotee, prays, "My dear Lord, just now I am quite healthy, and it is better that I die immediately so that the swan of my mind can seek entrance at the stem of your lotus feet." The metaphor is used because the swan, a bird of water, takes pleasure in digging into the lotus flowers. It is sporting its sporting proclivity is to enter the lotus flower. Maharaj Kulashekar says to the Lord, "Now my mind is undisturbed and I am quite healthy. If I die immediately, thinking of your lotus feet, then I am sure that my performance of your devotional service will become perfect. But if I have to wait for my natural death, then I do not know what will happen because at that time the bodily functions will be disrupted. My throat will be choked up, and I do not know whether I shall be able to chant your name. Better let me die immediately." Arjun questions how a person can fix his mind on Krishna's lotus feet at such time.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much,
Hare
Sunil Prabhu. So very nice purport actually. So Prabhupada answers some things. So Arjuna is asking Lord of sacrifice. So Prabhupada mentions Lord of sacrifice may refer. So just like we talked about soul referring to body, mind, and Atma referring to body, mind, and soul. The Lord of sacrifice is, even though the primal Lord of sacrifice is Vishnu or Krishna, as he says everywhere in the, even in Bhagavad Gita or other Vedic literature. In the 5th chapter, last verse, we read that Bhoktaram Yajna Tapasam Sarva Loka Maheshwaram, that Bhokta or enjoyer of all the yajnas and tapasas is I am Bhoktaram Yajna Tapasam and Sarva Loka Maheshwaram. I am the controller of all the lokas, all the 14 planetary systems in all the universes. And Surudam Sarva Bhutanam. I am the best friend of all living entities. Jnatva Mam Shantim Richati. One who knows me in that way, he attains peace, Shanti. And also in the 9th chapter, eventually we will read that he says that Aham hi sarva yajnanam bhokta cha prabhurevacha. That I am the enjoyer, bhokta, and Prabhu, or the Lord of all the yajnas. Aham hi sarva yajnanam bhokta cha prabhurevacha. Na tu mam abhijananti tatvena chavantite. And one who doesn't know me like this, one who doesn't accept me as the bhokta or bhokta, enjoyer, bhokta and Prabhu, or the Lord of sacrifice, then they fall down in this material world, chavantite. But sometimes the sacrifices here done are also for the devatas here, because they are the administrative power for the intelligent, for the immediate that control. So for rain, one may worship Indra, because he's the immediate controlling deity for that, who is administrative controlling deity, who has given that authority, who has given that control by Krishna. But he's supposed to work for Krishna. So Indra, he being the king of devatas, or he being the administrative leader of all the devatas, he is also referred as Lord of Sacrifice or Adhyagni. But the supreme Lord of Sacrifice or the Adhyagnya is Vishnu or Krishna. And both Indra and Vishnu are worshipped, but Vishnu is the ultimate enjoyer of everything. We heard that in the 7th chapter also, that whenever the people who have kamaisthaiste ritagyana prapadyantenne devata, that who are desirous of satisfaction of their senses, they worship different devatas because they want some results from them. So somebody may worship Lakshmi ji for getting some wealth, somebody may worship Lord Shiva for getting some other benediction, for wealth or for some material gain. One who worships Varuna for something, and Surya for good health, Uma for good wife, and so on and so forth. But they worship these devatas and they get their results, material results from those devatas. Yes, but those are sanctioned by me, Krishna says. And those results are actually temporary. Antavattu phalam tesha. So even though their result we get by worshipping devatas, those are temporary because whole material creation is temporary. So anything we get in this material creation is temporary. But when we worship Krishna or Vishnu, and when we perform sacrifice, because he is the ultimate Lord of sacrifice, then the results what we get are eternal. And that's why it is recommended that akamo sarva kamo va moksha kama udaradi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. That even if one may not have any desire, he is akama. Or one may have all kinds of material desires, sarva kama, akamo sarva kamo, or one may desire moksha kama. But udaradi, one who is intelligence, one who has broader intelligence, udaradi, what that person should do or what it is, tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Then he engages with tivra, with dhrudata purvak, determination, bhakti yogena, he worships in bhakti yoga the purusham param, the parama purush Bhagavan Shri Krishna. He worships him because he is the ultimate bhokta or enjoyer or Lord of sacrifice. And then again, the Madhusudan, when he refers Madhusudan here, so Prabhupada quotes very beautifully, because Madhusudan, the name of Krishna Madhusudan, is because he killed the demons Madhu and Kaitaba at that time. So he killed demon Madhu, that's why he's Madhusudana, Sudana, one who killed the demon Madhu. And the questions that arise in Arjuna's minds are just like the doubts, or they are like also demons. So they are demon, they are bothering him. And that's why to slash those doubts, the demonic doubts, he is referring to him as Krishna, because no one other than Krishna can satisfy for these doubts or these questions. And that's what he is mentioning here, that so that Krishna might kill the demonic doubts arise in the mind of Arjuna. Now the word prayana kale, why prayana kale is so important? We have been hearing this for some time, that prayana kale, that we have to remember Krishna or we have to do something at prayana kale. So the time of death, according to the Shastras, is considered as very, very important. It is just like when I get admitted to a college, the time I spend in college or the whole year or the tenure in my college is tested on the last test what I appear for. So in the same manner, the time of death is like our exam for this lifetime. And that everything is tested at the time of death, and then I can think of, or my bhava or my consciousness is based on how I have lived this whole life. So it is said in, I don't remember if it is in Srimad Bhagavatam or other scripture I read, but it is said that at the time of death, whole life of the living entities goes in front of his eyes, just like a movie, what he has done. And based on that, he develops a consciousness, and then whatever bhava he develops at that time, that type of body he will get after death. So this life is also called as, I'm preparing a blueprint for my next life. I'm designing my next body by acting whatever actions I'm performing in this lifetime. I'm preparing for my next body. And that's why prayana kal, or the time of death, is very, very, very important. And to prepare for that time of death, the way I live my life is very important. Actually, the ultimate success, what we, I think, sometimes talked about from Srimad Bhagavatam, that whatever way I choose, whatever path I choose in this life, but if the ultimate success of my life is actually if I can remember Krishna at the time of death. If I can remember him, then it doesn't matter what type of life, whatever process I chose, my life is successful. Etavan Sankhya Yogabhya Swadharma Parinishthaya Janma Labha Param Pumsa Ante Narayana Smriti. When Shukdev Goswami is explaining this to Parikshit Maharaj, when Parikshit Maharaj asks him question, beautiful question, that, oh, now I am going to die in 7 days. So what is the duty of a human being, particularly one who is going to die? And every one of us is going to die. So he explains those certain things, how people spend life. We learn about Gruhamedi. He mentions about how we spend life in just satisfying the senses, just by maintaining family and earning money. But whatever process I chose, etavan, it may be Sankhya process, analytical study of life, whatever I want to do. Analytical Sankhya is nothing but analytical study of what is spirit, what is matter, and then analyzing both spiritual energy, material energy, and further analyzing those. That is study. So that is Sankhya. In yoga abhyas is basically, yoga is attaining certain kind of material siddhi, ashta siddhi. The best yoga person, that one who has attained all the siddhis, I can think of is Hanumanji. Hanumanji has all the ashta siddhis. You can become smaller than the smallest, you can become bigger than the biggest, you can become lighter than the lightest, and you can become the heavier. And there are different siddhis. So Mahatam, Ishita, Vashita, and those are so on and so forth. So we read this in Ramayana, that when he jump to Lanka, go to Lanka, then he showed many of those siddhis. He became smaller to enter into the palace of Ravana. Even to go to the palace, he showed that he became huge. He became very bigger and jumped from there. So all these siddhis, so these different siddhis, that's why yoga, the yogis perform yogic processes. So etavan sankhya yoga swadharma parinishthaya, or somebody performs his swadharma according to this material conception. So I have my dharma based on my different positions. As a father, I have dharma to maintain my family. As a Brahman, I have certain dharma, shatkarma, nipuna, vipra. So the 6 activities I have to perform is what is that? Pathan, Pathan, Yajan, Yajan, Dana, Pratigraha. So I have to do Pathan, learn from the Shastra. Pathan, I have to teach that Shastra. Yajan, Yajan, I have to worship myself, engage myself in worshipping the deity or some rituals, and I have to engage others also in the rituals. And then Dana, Pratigraha, I can accept Dana and I can also give Dana. So these are the 6 activities are recommended in the Vedas for Brahmana. So these are the Swadharma. Kshatriya has his own Swadharma, Vaishya has his own. So these are the different. Even if I Swadharma Parinishtaya, Nishtapurvak, very काटेकोरपणे मी जरी स्वधर्माचं पालन केलं, पण जन्म लाभ परम पुंसाम, for all the living entities, pumsam, for all the human beings, for all the personalities. Janma labha param. Param means supreme. Janma labha means success of this life. Is what? Ante Narayana Smriti. That ultimately, at the time of giving up this body, Ante, if I am able to remember Narayan, that is the success of my life. It doesn't matter what process I choose, Sankhya or Yoga or following any Varnashrama Dharma. It doesn't matter. And that's why Prayana Kala is considered as very, very important process. And we will learn in this how I can prepare. What do I need to prepare for thinking of Krishna at the time of death? And also, he also mentions what happens to one who remembers Krishna and what happens to one who doesn't remember to Krishna, or he remembers something else. Prabhupada gives an example of King Kulashekara. King Kulashekara in the Mukunda Mala Sutra, he has, I don't know enough about King Kulashekara. It's one of the southern Indian kings. And in the Mukunda Mala Stotra, he recites a verse which Prabhupada summarizes here, that he prays basically that, hey Bhagwan, at this point I am in healthy condition. Now I can remember you. So please let me die now, because otherwise at the time of death, my throat will be choked up. I don't have my ability to think properly. And at that time, it will be very difficult for me to remember you. So as long as I can remember you in this healthy condition, please let me die. This is the prayer King Kulashekara does. And with this is also, he says in the poetic way that the swan of my mind should take shelter of the lotus flower and entangle in the lotus flower, so that I am completely merged in you by remembering you. And I think I had searched up that and I found, see if I can see, 4.8.15. So in the purport of 4.8.15 Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada quotes this verse of Mukundamala Sutra, 4th canto, 8th chapter, 15th verse. So here, no, for 18:15, I just wrote down. Yeah, here. So in the purport, this desire was also expressed by King Kulashekara. So here, Prithu Maharaj is, when he's referring to Prithu Maharaj, refers to something similar. So Prabhupada quotes this verse from Mukundamala Sutra. The desire was also expressed by King Kulashekara in Mukundamala Sutra. And he says, Krishna Tvadiya Pada Pankaja Panjarantam Adyaiva Me Vishato Manasa Rajhamsa Prana Prayana Samaye Kaphavata Pittaye Kantavarodhana Pidu Smaranam Kutaste. Because at the time of Prayanakal, कफ पात वित्त पित्त हे सगळे तीन जे धातू आहेत ते सगळे everything chokes up basically. And Kantavarodha, I will have my throat and everything choked up without. How can I remember you at that time? And that's why Krishna Tvadiya Pada Pankaja Panjarantam, that let me take shelter of your lotus feet. And my mind's Rajahamsa, my mind's Hamsa should just entangle in the lotus flower of the lotus of your feet. Pada Pankaja. Pankaja means lotus. So this is the player. King Kulashekara wanted to give up his body while in healthy state, and he thus prayed to Krishna to let him die immediately while he was in good health and while his mind was sound. When a man dies, he is generally overpowered by mucus and bile, and thus he chokes. Since it is very difficult to vibrate any sound while choking, it is simply by Krishna's grace that one can chant Hare Krishna at the time of death. But however, by situating oneself in Muktasana position, a yogi can immediately give up his body and go to whatever planet. So this is here for further Prabhupada explains about the yogi. In particular position, he can give up his body and he can go wherever he wants. But yeah, this is King Kulashekara's prayer from Mukundamala Sutra that Prabhupada refers here in the verse. And now my mind is undisturbed and I am quite healthy. Let me die immediately, thinking of your lotus feet. I am sure that my performance of your devotional service will become perfect. Otherwise, my mind will be disrupted. My bodily functions will be disrupted and my throat will be choked up and I would not be able to think about you. So I will stop here and then so to recap, the first two verses, Arjuna is asking 8 questions overall actually. And yeah. So these 2 verses we read today. So Arjuna uvacha kim tad brahma kim adhyatmam kim karma purushottama adibhutam cha kim proktam adidaivam kim uchyate adiyajna katham kotra dehesmin madhusudana prayana kale cha katham niyosi niyatatmabhi. So he asks, what is Brahman? What is self? What are fruitive activities or karma? What is this material manifestation or adibhutam? What are the demigods or adidaiva? Then he further asks, who is the Lord of sacrifice, adiyajna? And how does he live in this body? And how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? So these are the questions Arjuna asked. And from next week, we will start learning how Krishna answers these questions in this chapter. So we'll stop there and we can take some points taking away or takeaway points or any reflections, or if there are any questions, I will try to the best of my ability to answer.
अक्षर ब्रह्म हे नाव काय आहे?
Akshara Brahma. So Akshara, so Brahma is basically, as we talked about, is spiritual energy and which is eternal, which never ever gets deteriorated. म्हणजे ज्याचा कधी क्षय होत नाही, अक्षर ज्याचा क्षर होत नाही ते अक्षर आणि ब्रह्म And this is because in this chapter we are learning about the spiritual energy of the Lord, which is eternal, and the science of that spiritual being or science of Brahman. That is what we are learning in this chapter. And then he mentions about how living entities can go to different planet, body they get, or different planets, or how they can even go directly to a spiritual planet. So that's what towards the end of this chapter we learn. And in the end, he says that actually that a devotee, Krishna's bhakta, he doesn't have to worry about all these processes, different processes, because as long as he surrender unto me, he is not bereft of any of the benefits that he gets from all these processes. So that's why Akshara Brahma Yoga. I hope that helps. And as we go further, we'll study more about this. We'll talk about that.
Okay.
Yes, Prabhuji, any thoughts, reflections? I'll stop sharing. And
One thing really amazed me, where he even mentions about the Hamsa, the swan, going to the feet of the lotus or the foot of the stem.
yeah,
I mean, something that we have never ever even given thought to. A swan was a swan. English poems मध्ये यायचे. But the Hamsa or the swan is such a celebrated animal or bird, I should say. It being Saraswati ji's Vahan itself has got a lot of meaning. I have always heard many people, I mean, आमच्या ह्याच्यात कधी दसऱ्याला किंवा कधी असं काय बोलणं झालं तर there are people who have said that it is only the Hamsa which has that ability to separate milk from water.
correct.
And it is amazing that not a single scientific or whatever research has ever gone into this aspect of why or what that animal stands for. Which means we have missed so many things which we could have easily learned in the BhagavadGita. It reminds me of one incident where Mahaperiyava or Chandrasekhara Saraswati, he happens to meet a family whose son is a doctorate in quantum physics. तर आई वडील बरोबर जाऊन नमस्कार वगैरे करतात हंबली. मुलगा असा उभा आहे, म्हाताऱ्याशी काय बोलायचं काइंड ऑफ. So the gentleman asks him, so my son, what were you doing in the US? The बाप म्हणतो, अरे उत्तर तरी दे, I mean, don't be so snobbish. So he says, I did my doctorate in quantum physics. So the gentleman, normally all Brahmins carry that dandam. ते हातात होतं. He drew one plus and he drew one minus and drew a circle around the signs. And he asked him, did you take the positive approach or the negative approach? असं म्हटल्यावर that guy suddenly woke up. He says, a guy who is in some orange clothes sitting on a stone in a corner, I thought kaitari time pass hai and he is asking me positive negative approach. So thoda arrogance utarla त्याचं म्हणे, I took the positive approach. So he asked him, why didn't you take the negative approach? He says, it's very difficult. So he tells the person who was in charge of his Veda Pathshala, tells some boys and starts off with something from the Rig Veda and says, ask the children to recite this. And they recite. 5 minutes झाल्यानंतर that guy is an absolute, kind of shock. He says, can you please repeat that for me? So he gets the children to chant again. And then at the end of it, Swamiji asks him, Ata vatta na, that what you could have achieved in 7 years took you almost 24-25 years. And he had no response.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the power of what we have in our texts. And somebody who was one of the Alvars, Rajshekhar Perumal, talks of, gives an example of a swan. Rajshekhar Perumal was a big man. But look at the kind of logic they employed. In fact, nowadays I tend to feel that the logic we employ itself is pure, on the physical plane logic. Doesn't have tattva behind it. I mean, I was amazed and hats off to this person who has done this research. Nobody from the north will tell you about Rajshekhar Perumal.
Mhm.
Nobody from the south will be able to relate to what happened in the north, to be very honest.
Mhm.
But this is amazing. The kind of work he has, and no doubt it has paid. ISKCON has become something that is so huge now. It can't be just by anybody, any Tom, Dick, and Harry who wanted to spread the Gita. He is Bhagavan in person.
Yeah.
Thanks. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that pastime, Harish Prabhu.
Hare
Thank you. That was very nice. And Hamsa, actually, maybe I'll take a few minutes here. So Hamsa is referred in many places in our Vedic literature. In many scriptures, Hamsa is referred actually, because, and the sannyasis are the highest kind of sannyasis are referred as Paramahamsas. And because of the same quality as Rajesh Prabhu you mentioned, because Hamsa takes the essence of when water and milk is mixed and given to him, he will drink the milk only from that mixture, and the water he will not even touch, or he will leave behind. In the same manner, Paramahamsas, or the sannyasis who are Paramahamsas, they take the essence of everything. And the essence is mentioned in all the Vedic literature or Bhagavad Gita or everywhere, that we read in 7th chapter, Vasudeva Sarvamiti, that out of everything, one who knows that Vasudeva, Krishna, is the essence in everything. He is the one I need to know. Then he is Paramahamsa. Or even in the 15th chapter, Krishna says, Sarvasya chaham hridhi sannishto mattasmriti jnanam voham cha vedaischa sarvair ahameva vedya. That out of all the Vedas, when you study, the only thing you need to know is me. The purpose of studying the Vedas is to know Krishna. Vedaischa sarvair ahameva vedya. Vedanta kritveda videvacha aham. And I am the compiler of the Vedas, and I am the knower of the Vedas. So the person who knows the essence of everything while living even in this material world is Paramahamsa. And there are 4 levels of, just a side note actually, when somebody takes sannyas, there are 4 different levels they go through for sannyasa process. The initial stage is called Kutichaka. So Kutichaka is when initial stage, when somebody takes sannyas, he goes out of the town, have a hut for himself and lives there, but he gets food. He studies on the Vedic literature and he spends time in isolation, and he gets his food from his home, his family. So because he is living in a kuti, that's why his primary stage of sannyasa is called Kutichaka. Then as he progresses further, then he thinks that, oh, I don't have to depend, I have taken sannyas, I don't have to depend on my family for food. And then he is called Bahudaka. So he doesn't get food from his family, but he goes around and asking for madhukari, asking for bhiksha, and that too only from few houses. It's not that he goes everywhere and depend on them. And whatever he gets, he's satisfied with that. So that is the next stage of sannyas. That is called Bahudaka. Then after that, he's still living in one place, but after that, then he realizes that, oh, I have gained some knowledge which I have to distribute to the people in general everywhere. And that's why he starts traveling around the world. Not for himself, but to give the knowledge to other people. And that's when it is called Parivrajaka Acharya. Parivrajaka. Vraja means to go, always on the go. So he's Parivrajakaachari. He's always traveling, not for his own benefit, but to give knowledge to other people, to share knowledge with, to teach others what is important for them, the spiritual knowledge. So that is called Parivrajakaachari. And when he understands the essence of this completely at elevated stage, then the highest stage of sannyas is called Paramahamsa. And that's why Hamsa is considered, is referred in many scriptures, even in Bhagavatam, it is referred so many times. Actually, the people who read literature that is not spiritual, so let's say reading Bollywood stories or any other Gramya Katha or anything, they are compared with crows because they are indulging in garbage. Crows are always going from one garbage place to other place, and they are looking for some trash. But people who are interested in spiritual knowledge and they don't care about the material knowledge or any Gramya Katha, then they are compared with Hamsas because they are taking the essence of everything. So just because we talked a little bit of Hamsas, so I just wanted to mention that. But thank you, Rajesh Prabhu. So yes, Prabhuji, is any additional thoughts or reflections?
प्रश्न कळला पण त्याचं उत्तर काही या पर्पोर्ट मध्ये नव्हतं ना, कारण माझ्या मध्ये ऑन ऑफ कॉल आल्यामुळे माझं ड्रॉप ऑफ झालं, मला कळलं नाही.
कुठला प्रश्न? सॉरी.
म्हणजे शेवटच्या क्षणी कृष्णाचं नाव आपल्या मनात असणं किंवा तोंडात असणं, त्याला हे खूप गरजेचं आहे. हा प्रश्न आहे तिथं त्याला, हे किती डिफिकल्ट आहे त्याला उत्तर काय ते कळलं नाही मला.
उत्तर आपण पुढे घेऊ, म्हणजे त्यासाठीच मग कृष्ण म्हणतो तस्मात् सर्वेषु कालेषु मामनुस्मरेत् च इन द 7th verse. But that is the ultimate success of life. That is what is mentioned in many places, here also and in other scriptures also. Yeah. Yes, Kiran Prabhu, any thoughts?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
No different thoughts, but I think this chapter is going to be very interesting because the questions which are asked by Arjuna are something which is going to enlighten all of us also, going to be very helpful. हे प्रश्न आपल्याला वारंवार पडत होते, त्याचा अजून जास्त आता आपल्याला उलगडा होईल असं वाटतं या 8th चॅप्टर मध्ये. सो इट्स गोइंग टू बी इंटरेस्टिंग इन द कमिंग वीक्स.
प्रश्न आवडला यात काही वाद नाही.
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Prabhu.